Crew actually landed today. FS1 crew landed today. They'll get things rolling bright and early, Mountain Time. So if you're a BYU fan, head on down to the stadium early and show yourself well as you're going to be on national television. It's the first time that Big Fox, has been in Provo. It's the first time Joel Klatt has been in Provo since he was ejected as a minor league baseball player, playing some minor league baseball down there. So, big weekend of college football ahead. Get you ready for it here on The Drive with a good guest list, about 2.5 hours for us, and then it's time for Utah pregame coverage. A little Thursday night football last night. Brock Purdy looked pretty good. Talked about it last night. Deebo Samuel, of course, George Kittle, and the Niners went up to Lumen Field in Seattle, took care of the Seahawks 36-24. That got your weekend started. Week 6 of the NFL. You're going to have a bright and early game in London with the Jags and the Bears. 7:30 a.m. is going to be the kick time as far as the Mountain Time zone goes. So big weekend of football ahead. How about the Utah Hockey Club on Strong Island taking care of the Islanders in dramatic fashion? Overtime, 5-4 was your final score. Dylan Guenther added a couple of more goals. He is the league leader in goals through 2 games. He has 4. And the Utah Hockey Club scored with like 20 seconds left to force overtime and then got the first goal after about 2 minutes, 18 seconds in overtime. It was Sean Dursey and Logan Cooley providing the assists, and Dylan Guenther gets your game winner. Utah Jazz played last night. They played the Dallas Mavericks. They improved to 3-0 in the preseason. They beat Dallas 107-102. Preseason does not mean a damn thing. But you can look at some of the trends, some of the lineups, and it is the same starting lineup. So as opening night approaches on the 23rd, you can expect Larry Markkinen, Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, and Keontae George to be your starters. Look like the rotation is going to be made up of Bryce Sensabaugh, Jordan Clarkson, Isaiah Collier, and John Collins. Kyle Filipowski only played 3 minutes. Keontae had to leave with a bit of a knee thing. Apparently he's okay. Just get through preseason unscathed is really all you can ask for. But NBA action is right around the corner. Major League Baseball Divisional Series. The final game will be tonight. It's a big one for the Dodgers. The series is tied up at 2 games apiece. The Padres and the Dodgers tied up at 2. Dodger Stadium, Los Angeles, California. That's going to be a 6:08 first pitch. That will be on Fox. And, yeah, a lot of pressure. If you have Shohei Ohtani, you have to get out of the divisional round. Hoping to join the other teams so far, including both New York teams. The Yankees took care of business last night, 3-1. And the Guardians, with a comeback, they beat the Tigers 5-4. So the final the final pennant series, do they still say pennant? Well, I do. Will be determined tonight as the Padres take on the Dodgers. Great time of year. A little bit of everything going on. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations. You made it. It's weekend time. We'll start things off with Max Brown today. Good college football guest, Max Brown, formerly of the Pac-12 Network, now with our friends at the CW, but does a lot of social media stuff on the Big Ten, the Big 12, SEC. So we'll get with Max right out of the gates. We're going to do our big show, big hour. We typically do it on Thursdays. We'll do it on Friday today with Craig Bolerjack and Gordon Monson. And Gordo today we're going to bring back an old bit. If you're a longtime listener of this show, thank you for that. But if you listen to the show I did with Gordon for 7.5 years, prior to every Jazz season, Gordon would hand out nicknames for Jazz players in front of Bowler and try to convince Bowler to use his nicknames. Spoiler alert, Craig has never used one, and he never will because Gordon's nicknames are atrocious. But we're going to put him on the hot seat today. He's going to give us some nicknames for some of the new Jazz players. And then coming up after the big show, big hour, prior to Utah pregame on the radio, the man who broke the news yesterday that Cameron Rising will be back under center, Brett McMurphy, will stop by. Coming up, that'll be about 4 o'clock if you want to set your alerts for that interview. So Max Brown, Craig Bolerjack, Gordon Monson, Brett McMurphy, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Porter Larson on a Friday, pregame coverage style. How you guys rolling today?
Yeah, and apparently they don't play Frank Sinatra on the radio anymore, but I did get your piece up and running. So excited for Utah football game day, but of course some time for both of our New York baseball teams in to the championship series and some fun stuff in that direction. But yes, top of mind today, Spence, is the reported return of one Cam Rising against the Arizona State Sun Devils and Brett McMurphy, the guy who at least had it first and had it officially on the interwebs, will join the show later. And, of course, a big hour. Always fun catching up with Gordon and Bolerjack.
We will save Frankie Blue Eyes for the final segment of this program. We'll enter the weekend playing the song that the Yankees play after they win. But after I was bullied while walking out of the studio last night between you and James, wishing my Yankees a loss. I had to come in. I almost wore my Jeter.
I want to be clear.
I almost wore the Jeter today. That's how happy I was. You guys got it. I also sent Riles a text. I had to send our Kansas City Royals friend a text. I don't think he was very happy about it. All he said was, well, I guess no mullet for you. I am going to win a bet where Bill has to grow a mullet. I just have to decide what it is.
Okay, listen. I just got to be clear. I'm not cheering against you or the Yankees. It's really hard for me to get behind it, to be cheering for you, right? Not you, the Yankees. And last night was one of the few times where I was kind of conflicted. I was almost cheering for the Yankees because if you remember, of course, some trauma with those Royals and specifically Salvador Perez, who is still on that roster. He was the World Series MVP, of course, that year that they beat the Mets. So I was okay seeing them eliminated. But of course, your Yankees advancing is not my favorite thing in the world.
Porter, there are 13-year-olds that have not seen the Yankees win a World Series title. This has to stop. There are 13-year-olds. It's tragic. So right out of the gates, Max Brown will be our first guest to talk some football. We'll get you ready for the Ute game tonight. Max will let us know what it means to have Cameron back under center. Then Craig Bolerjack, Gordon Monson, Brett McMurphy too. But courtesy of our good friends at Standard Restaurant Supply. Get ready for the final 3 tailgates in style with Standard Restaurant Supply. Get everything you need to make your tailgate epic. You can check them out online at standardrestaurant.com or stop by their convenient location of 3500 Southwest Temple. It is time now on a Friday for your opening tip. It's a massive, massive college football weekend locally and nationally. For us around here in Salt Lake, it starts tonight as the Utah Utes are in Tempe, Arizona to take on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Kickoff will be at 8:30 Mountain Time at Mountain America Stadium down in Tempe. The AccuWeather forecast is 98 degrees at kick, even though it's 8:30 Mountain Time. The line is settled. Utah is a 5.5-point favorite. By the way, you can watch the game tonight on the big ESPN channel. Of course, you can listen to the game here on ESPN 700. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, our guy Sean O'Connell is going to be on the sidelines in place of Stevenson Sylvester tonight. Pre-game coverage comes your way with Porter Larson, Jordan Wynn, and maybe some special guests starting at 4:30 this afternoon. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Now, as we were doing the show yesterday, about the 2 o'clock hour, actually right as we started the 2 o'clock hour, Brett McMurphy tweets out, Utah quarterback Cam Rising will start Friday at Arizona State, sources told the Action Network. Rising hasn't played since September 7th versus Baylor, when he injured the ring finger on his throwing hand, requiring stitches. Rising has missed Utah's last 3 games, more accurately, Utah's last 3.5 games. Now, I will remind you that Brett McMurphy, after Dorian Singer told the media that Cameron Rising was going to play against Oklahoma State, Brett McMurphy tweeted out that sources are telling him that Cam Rising was going to play against Utah State. I'm not calling Brett a liar, not even kind of, and I believe this report is correct based off the things that we've heard all week, trending in the right direction. Cam, according to Coach Witt on his coach's show here on ESPN 700 with Riles, said that Cam has had a great week of practice, and people that have been able to get an eye on him have talked about how good that he's looked this week. So, as we've discussed on this show, my take on this entire thing continues to be college football player hurt. College football player needs time to get healthy, period. End of story. Now, I also understand why, based off of what we all dealt with last year, prior to pretty much every game up until I gave you the report week 4 that he wasn't playing all year, it was game time decision. We'll kind of have to wait and see how it goes. And ultimately, it turned out that we were all being misled, and Cam and Brant Keithy were never expected to play last year at all, leading Cam to come on Bill's show last year and give Chris Camerati from The Athletic an interview talking about how hard it was for him to hear all the noise based off of the nature of his knee injury. Now, this injury is much different, and it was much different right away. It has been much different the entire time. That's why I continue to say, simply put, Cam Rising hurt. Cam Rising needs time to get healthy, and now he's healthy, and according to these reports, he will be under center tonight. Now, I will admit And I don't know if it's what we dealt with last year. I don't know if it's the whole game time thing leading up to the past 3 weeks. I still will not believe it until Utah's first team offense runs out onto the field in Tempe and Cameron's under center. That's not a knock on McMurphy. It's not a knock on any of our local reporters that have been able to get some information in that direction as well. It's just kind of where I'm at with it. I'll believe it when I see it. And that's just kind of how I'm going to roll. So the good news is, with Isaac Wilson certainly having understandable struggles in his starts, no other top 25 team has a quarterback who's thrown more than 5 interceptions, and Isaac has thrown 7. It's very safe to say that this football program was much better built and much better prepared for their contingencies in the instance that Cameron goes down. Last year, it was Nate, then it was Bryson, then it was Nate and Bryson, and it never fully looked the way it needed to look for Utah to do anything above than what they did. And by the way, winning 8 games last year with that group in the quarterback room that clearly suffered mightily after losing both Cameron and Brandon. I mean, 8 wins to me that's one of Kyle's best coaching jobs. But now Cameron's back under center, and Utah really no worse for the wear. Yes, they got by Arizona, but if you've been paying attention to the landscape of college football, not just in the Big 12, but nationally, there will be multiple teams in the CFP with multiple losses, and not just 1 or 2, maybe even 3 or 4. Now, we do this weird thing in college football where, like, your team loses 1 game, and it feels like the world has ended, right? In the NFL, Super Bowl winning teams win the ring after losing 4, 5, 6 games all the time. I don't know why we do this thing in college football. After your team loses once, you go into this deep depression, you kick the dog, you start drinking Jaeger for breakfast. Like, calm down. Let it play out. It's okay. I don't think there's going to be any team in Big 12 play that finishes their conference schedule undefeated. I really, right now, it's Texas Tech, much better than anybody thought, and a good football team for sure. It's Brigham Young, who Kalani obviously has built himself a really solid squad, year 2 in the Big 12, and they're good. I think it's time to start talking about them as a team that will be in it in the end. But I heard Joel Klatt say this today, like, BYU is not going undefeated. They're not. I mean, that's just what the odds say. Like, if you were betting the mortgage, if you were betting your paycheck, I don't care how big of a BYU fan you are. I don't care if you're Greg Wrubell. If you're betting the Greg Wrubell paycheck, will BYU go undefeated? You're not going to bet it on yes, because that's a dumb bet. The odds tell you that's not going to happen. I like Iowa State, but they're not going to survive clean. And you really think Colorado, after 2 conference wins, is going undefeated? Like, Utah with 1 win is squarely in the mix. Vegas still likes them among the favorites to win the Big 12. But it does start tonight in a bit of a complicated scenario because of all the chaos surrounding the information with your quarterback. And Arizona State, year 2 under Kenny Dillingham, they're much better. This is an improved team. Now, what they like to do, I think, is in direct correlation with what Utah is good at. They like to run the football. They want to establish the run game. I'm a little bit nervous based off the lack of physicality we saw against Arizona a couple Saturdays ago, because Arizona State is a physical team. They do like to run the ball, and they like to play balanced offensive football. And we haven't heard anything about the availability of Karene Reed or Connor O'Toole, at least at this moment. Hopefully prior to kickoff tonight, we'll either get information or we'll watch the defense run out on the field, and they'll have their full contingency of bodies as well. It's not just Cameron. There are several other players that have been out. And for Utah to stack up to Arizona State's run game, I think they need Karene and Connor. I mean, we saw Arizona's offensive front, their O-line dominated Utah in the trenches. Coach Witt said as much. And you can't allow that to happen tonight against a really solid, much improved team on their home field. Remember Utah trounced them a year ago. Like, it was embarrassing up here. I would imagine they're going to remember that, and probably a little bit of revenge on the mind. All right, real quick, BYU welcomes in Arizona. Arizona, to me, is the most confusing team in the Big 12. I watched them dominate this Utah football team in the trenches with physicality just a couple of weeks ago here in Salt Lake. After 2 weeks before that, I watched them get bullied by Kansas State. K-State beats Arizona 31-7. Of course, BYU trounced Arizona in Provo. And so, do you draw a line to those 2 games directly? I think it's hard to do. We don't really know what the status is and the health of those BYU running backs just yet. We'll also find out. Big noon, Fox kickoff in town. Urban Meyer in town to say hello to his favorite people, his BYU fans who he used to like to needle so much. And up to this point, BYU has answered every single question that's been asked of them. They have not lost the turnover battle once, not one time all year. Jake Retzlaff has started to evolve as a decision maker. He was always a good athlete. He can really sling it. We know that about him. Just take care of the ball. And that home, Lavelle Edwards Stadium is going to be rocking. It's Fox's first experience in Provo, Joel Klatt's first experience in Provo. They're going to see a great atmosphere. Will BYU rise to the occasion once again and move to 6-0, bowl eligible, surpassing last year's win total, and joining Texas Tech as the other 3-0 team in conference play? Big game in Tempe tonight, big game in Provo tomorrow. Great college football weekend ahead. Don't forget pregame coverage here on ESPN 700 for Utah football is at 4:30. Then kickoff from Tempe is at 8:30. All right, coming up on the other side, more college football. Max Brown, one of my favorites to talk quarterback play and talk college football with. He's going to join us. Big show, big hour. Craig Bolajak, Gordon Monson, then Brett McMurphy, the man who broke the news that Cameron Rising's back under center tonight, joins us before we hand it off to Porter for Utah pregame. It's a drive on a Friday. Happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Quarterback play, the big topic of the day today, as according to Brett McMurphy, who's going to join the show in about an hour and a half from right now. Cameron Rising back under center for the Utah Utes tonight against Arizona State. Our next guest joins us on a consistent basis to help us learn more about college football, quarterback play specifically, Max Brown, on a Friday afternoon. All right, Max, instant reaction. Utah, according to reports, we're getting our quarterback back. Cam Rising under center tonight.
Instant reaction is I'll believe it when I see it, but coming off a bye week, we all know how that usually plays out, right? That's usually kind of like the landmark of if he's on the fence, maybe give him that extra week of rest or like sit him out that one more game. So then you get a full another, 10, 13 days on the back end. That's just more of like a football jargon thing, but I'm hoping we see him, and obviously it would be a big deal for the Utah side of things.
I am with you, and we're going to have Brett McMurphy on the show, and I'm not diminishing his report or saying he's incorrect. We've all just been through too much with this stuff that up until Utah's first-team offense runs out on the field tonight against ASU and Tempe, if Cam's under center, okay, great, and if he's not, I guess that's just the deal. I will also believe it when I see it, but let's expand the conversation and operate off the hypothetical that tonight it is Cam Rising under center for Utah. As a guy who played the position at this level and as a guy who transferred, you get hurt, you come back, what are the biggest challenges to try to adapt instantly to game speed when you haven't been in a game for over a month?
Yeah, Cam's played so much football. I think in the grand scheme of quarterbacks that have to deal with that, I think he is as equipped as anyone to not blink and just go right back in there. But obviously with it being a hand and being a quarterback, that's delicate. But I almost think getting through warm-ups and settling in just through warm-ups and getting acclimated to, all right, here's what I'm working with today. Hey, I'm going to have this issue, or, hey, this is a little bit shaky kind of thing. If it's shaky at all, I bet he won't play. So if he goes out there for a snap, I would be very confident from a Utah perspective that, he's good to go, especially just given his injury history. I remember at a game in high school where I banged up my throwing hand, and it was like a cut, and I had to do the whole skin glue situation, and It was annoying. But after 3 plays, you just kind of forget about it because you have bigger issues to worry about when dudes are chasing you. And my gut says that is hopefully how Cam's going to be wired.
So as of right now, Max, the Vegas odds to win the Big 12, Iowa State is now firmly entrenched as the favorite. Utah is actually at 2, slightly ahead of K-State, who is at 3. So this is going to sound silly, but we're in Salt Lake. I'm going to ask you anyway. 4-1, rough loss to Arizona. I would imagine you're with most of us where you still believe that this is a team that can compete for and win a Big 12 championship and ultimately go to the CFP.
Without a doubt. I think the national media is forgetting that we've kind of seen this story before with Utah. I know we've talked about it a few times of, Utah stubs their toe in September, maybe early October, and then you kind of forget about them, at least from a national perspective, for 2 or 3 weeks. And then sure enough, come November, they're right in the thick of things. I do think, the Big 12, this is a huge, huge weekend for the Big 12. You talk about, Iowa State going on the road to Morgantown in a sneaky matchup there. Maybe it's not even sneaky, but just I say that because no one's really talking about West Virginia as winning the conference. And then you also have K-State, Colorado, very much a fork in the road type of game, right? Who's going to keep the momentum that they've started? If Colorado comes out winning that game, I think the whole national narrative on them is going to be hey, Colorado's back, and that whole media circus that could come there. And then obviously the matchup in Tempe tonight, and then obviously BYU, Arizona as well. It just feels like there's heavy hitter matchups where we're going to know a lot about the Big 12 after Saturday.
So let's preview the game tonight. Utah down in Tempe is getting 5.5 points. The line has been interesting because at one point it was 6. It moved from 6 to 4 within 2 hours. So most people thought that meant Isaac Wilson was going to be under center. Now it's settled at 5.5. Kenny Dillingham, have had him on the show a couple times, caught up with him Big 12 media style. Pretty sharp guy. I think a lot of people think he has a big-time football pedigree, and he'll get this thing right at some point. What should we know about Arizona State? What are they doing early on in the year that's allowed them to get off to this 4-1 start?
they have one of the most physical running backs in college football, Cam Scatterbo, who, you Pac-12 fans will remember him from years past, or I guess last year, and when Arizona State had very little to no quarterback play, he kept that offense alive, and he's extremely physical. I think he's a different style college running back than you're used to seeing. I think a lot of running backs now in college are very capable in the pass game, but don't necessarily have that physical element. That is not Scatterbo. And then ASU's found some things at quarterback with Leavitt. I go more big picture with this game, though, in terms of when you look at Kenny Dillingham, year one, they had their struggles, but it's year one when you're building the program. Year two is when you want to start seeing strides, and you have seen those strides. They go into this game 4-1. Like, I think from the ASU perspective, I think from the inside Kenny Dillingham's brain, like, this is the game that they circle on a Friday night against what they view as the top team coming from the Pac-12, nationally ranked Utah, the whole deal. Like, I think this is a huge, huge game. I use the term fork in the road type of game. From ASU's perspective, if you win this game, this is the type of game that ASU could look back on a year from now being like, oh, where did it all start? Where did it all turn the corner? Oh, that Friday night versus Utah type of narrative. I think that's not an exaggeration to say the stakes are that big for ASU when they're trying to, not even just this season, not even just the month of October, but the trajectory of their program as they try to build this thing. It's huge.
On the scale of 1 to whatever you want to call it, how high should the upset concern be for Ute fans tonight? Because you referenced Scatterbo, you referenced their physical run game. And the one thing that it continues to stun me about what Arizona did to Utah is they beat them in the trenches, and Coach Witt admitted as much both after the game and then on his media availability the following Monday. So we don't know about the availability of Corene Reed, who's probably one of their two best linebackers, depending on how you rank he and Lander Barton, and Connor O'Toole, one of their 2 or 3 best pass rushers. The defense is also banged up. It's no excuse. But how concerned, Max, should Ute fans be about this game tonight?
I'd be sitting on your couch watching this game, expecting it to be fight, expecting it to be a 4-quarter game. I think Utah ultimately gets it done, but I think it'll be close. I mean, you're talking, again, Friday night in the desert, on the road. That student body is going to get up for this thing. If Cam Rising's coming back, to your first question, like if it takes him a couple drives to get going, can ASU take advantage? I do think on the flip side, though, given their identity as Cam Scatterbo at the running back position and being more physical than I think most teams are used to when they're matching up against ASU, I don't think Utah's getting bullied at all, especially coming off a bye week where, hey, they're probably frustrated that Arizona chapter happened. Utah is the standard when it comes to physical college football. I think the flip side is I think this is going to be a different type of matchup for ASU, where they're used to being the more physical team. That's hard to do versus Utah.
So you've already touched on this a couple times. Let's go a little bit deeper, though. You talked about the bye week, and we had Brian Jeffries on the show, who was Arizona's play-by-play voice, and he referenced that Arizona's entire goal going into the Utah game was to make it a get-right game after getting smoked by K-State and then having a bye week. So as somebody who played in college, take us into the anatomy of a bye week. Coming off a rough loss to Arizona, what do you think Coach Witt and that staff wanted to accomplish in the 2 weeks between last Saturday and tonight?
On the most basic level, it's a reset, right? It's you lose the momentum if you had good momentum, and I think you are itching to get the bad taste out of your mouth if you got beat the week prior. I think in college football, especially when these upsets happen, oftentimes it's because you got 18 to 21-year-olds that are you have momentum, you start reading your press clippings, you start feeling good about yourself, and then for whatever reason you get punched in the mouth the first and second quarter, and then it's a ball game by the fourth quarter, and then you ultimately lose that thing. I think a bye week almost prevents that a little bit, right? It's you're not able to get in a rhythm and kind of get in a lull kind of thing because you had to reset. It's a different schedule from just a psychological standpoint, so you're not just getting in the monotony of things. And for a team like Utah that historically has been extremely disciplined, has had older players, I think that bye week is great for a team like that, especially getting some of the guys healthy. But from a mental reset standpoint, it's, hey, let's get back to who we are. We're the more physical team. Anytime we walk into a matchup. That was not the case versus Arizona. go now you're playing a different Arizona team. I'd expect for the Utes to come out with an edge and let people know that hey, you can talk about Colorado, you can talk about Kansas State, you can talk about Iowa State, but the Big 12 still runs through the Utes.
And you referenced that you believe Utah gets it done in a close physical game, but I want to expand it and ask you, and I'm not going to say from a fan perspective because fans are lunatics. We love them. But from a fan's perspective, a get-right game for Utah probably looks like 75-0. That's not going to happen. From a player's and a coach's perspective, what do you think the team needs to do tonight for the group to walk out of that building and say to themselves, yep, tonight was a get-right game?
I think you said it with your first your question before that. They need to win the trenches. This can't be a game where we're seeing a lot of Cam Scatteraboo runs where he's hit at 3 yards and then falls forward for 6 or 7. This can't be a game where, dare I say, he really is a huge factor. He's going to get his to some degree, but you can't walk away being like, oh wow, we got worn down in the run game, because that's the identity of what Utah wants to be. And then I think if Cam Rising plays, from an offensive perspective, getting right is just, can you go out there and play efficient? You're not going to score on every single play. Not every drive is going to be perfect, but when the plays are there, can you play clean football? Can you have penalty-free football and go into next week feeling like, all right, we're not trying to find who our identity is. We're not trying to reset things. That, to me, is the biggest thing with a quote-unquote get-right game.
So I don't want to be too harsh on any of the wideouts or weapons that Utah has on their roster, because these guys have been without Cameron, and they've been catching balls from an 18-year-old freshman who just enrolled in school in April. But Dorian Singer appears to have established himself really as wide receiver 1. He has 26 catches, 359. Doesn't have a touchdown yet. Would like to see Dorian in the end zone. Brant Keithy, 17 catches, 269. I'm sure he'd like those numbers upped as he is auditioning for pro football, and I believe he is an NFL player. Money Parks is in double digits with 14 catches as well. But now that Cameron is back, Max, who do you expect out of this group of weapons that he has at his disposal to really start upping their production and seeing those numbers grow a little bit?
Got to be Keithy, right? As I look through their depth chart, I think one of the best throws that Cam makes, he makes it look really easy, and then the second that someone else comes behind center, it's an element of the offense that is no longer as productive. It's those slot seam routes that Utah calls a bunch on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. They've done it for years, and Cam has a very, very good feel for the timing of that route. He throws an extremely catchable ball, and I think he trusts his bigger body tight ends, which is why Utah has those guys running that route to beat the safety and be more physical. And he trusts those guys to make contested catches. And again, he makes that look easy. It's not easy. There's a lot of trust and a lot of timing and a lot of experience that goes into those throws. And that's been a staple of the Utah offense since I was playing. So I think Keithy's the guy that really sticks out. And if the safety rolls his way and takes away that seam, well, then maybe it's a Money Parks night with a veteran quarterback like Rising, just getting the ball to your hands. And even if that's a check down into the flat for a guy like Parks, or again, if he's on the other seam, on the other side of Keithy, using that option, I think those two guys really stick out to me.
Last Utah question, then we've got a big one down in Provo. I want to get your thoughts on coming up tomorrow at 2 with Fox Big Noon Kickoff in town. Coach Witt often talks about, and we saw this, as soon as Cam took over for Charlie Brewer, I think it was San Diego State, and they didn't end up winning that game, but it was a tangible difference, not just from quarterback play, but that the entire group seemed to respond to Cam on both sides of the ball. And Coach Witt often talks about, when we get Cam back, it's not only about improved quarterback play, he lifts the entire group just with his presence. You played quarterback. What is it about Cam Rising? What is it about great quarterbacks that seems to up the entire bottom line of the entire team, not just one bump in a position?
Where my head goes right away is great quarterbacks make the other players right when they're wrong. So when the right guard misses a block, well, Cam's legs can get him out of trouble, or Cam's experience in his brain can get the ball out just a beat faster. And so you cover up that mistake versus when you have a younger quarterback back there or an inexperienced quarterback, when that right guard misses his block, well, that young quarterback's saying, hey, I was still getting through my read and so-and-so missed his block, and it can create just a tension. And I think guys don't play as freely. And then I also think the bigger thing, especially in college football, is and coordinators may never admit to this, but especially from an offensive coordinator standpoint, I do think you start calling plays more tentatively to protect your younger quarterback, and it almost has an inverse effect to that, where you give your quarterback less answers and less opportunities to be explosive. And there's just, again, that attention, or you become more conservative or more protective of that quarterback, and you're not getting in a rhythm. You're not being fluid. And I think that applies to offensive linemen and the covering the mistakes like I talked about. It also applies to receivers that might run their route just a beat stronger because they know they might get the ball. And then it also applies to play callers where they can get in a rhythm because they know that, hey, even if I don't call the perfect play, I have a quarterback that's going to keep me right, or at least not make a bad play worse and totally stop a drive.
All right, moving over to what we'll see down south coming up tomorrow, 2 o'clock Mountain Time with Fox Big Noon kickoff. BYU welcomes in Arizona. I'm a little surprised the line isn't bigger. BYU is only a 3-point favorite. Essentially, you get 3 built in for being home, so Vegas views this as a pretty even matchup. Arizona baffles me. I don't get them. I don't understand them. They're probably the most confusing team in the Big 12. At times, Noah Fifita looks brilliant. Other times, he's trying to pick at every game, and he really forces the action at times, but he's also brilliant when he does his thing. Ironically enough, Jake Retzlaff statistically has outperformed Noah Fifita so far. When you look at rating, yards, they're even with completion percentage. But this should be an interesting matchup. Of course, a lot on the line as BYU is clean so far. But BYU, Arizona, tomorrow, 2 o'clock Mountain Time in Provo. Max, what are you expecting to see?
Yeah, from a Vegas standpoint, I think what enamors people about Arizona is just they can be so explosive. So if they wake up on the right side of the bed tomorrow in Provo, this can be one of the better offenses in the country. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Obviously, with Taterow and McMillan out there, but as we've seen, Arizona is fully capable of laying an egg. And I'm with you. They're tough to unpack. And I think even you look at the momentum that both these teams are on, they really are polar opposites, right? Going into this season, Arizona had tons of expectations, the most expectations they've had as a program in at least a decade, or maybe, they won the Pac-12, or they won the Pac-12 South 10 years ago. Like, so as big of expectations, if not bigger, and it almost feels like Noah Fifita and maybe this whole team's like pressing a little bit. It's, hey, we were supposed to be this top 15, top 10 team, and we're not there. Why are we not there? And then they try to bite off the big play offensively, and we've talked about this, I had concerns about their depth in terms of, I saw a Mel Kiper mock draft. They have 3 projected first-round draft picks, which is unheard of for Arizona, at least as things stand right now. But then after you get past that initial crop of guys, where are they at in starters 11 through 2022 kind of thing? I think they're still trying to figure that out. On the flip side, BYU had no expectations come into the season. They have found their perfect identity. They're rolling with all the good vibes in the world. Let's keep this thing rolling. Let's not overthink, and let's just go play football. And it's 2 totally different mindsets going into this game. And I think because of that, I trust the momentum that BYU has coming in the home environment, playing good defense and just solid offense enough to keep things rolling. And I'm with you. I think the line is intriguing, but again, it speaks to I think the trust that maybe Vegas has in Fifita and McMillan.
So a lot of people around here, and when you're in a homer market and BYU has propagated, paid for media, they're pounding the drum of Big 12 championship contention. Now look, they're clean and they're ranked and they're good. If you look at the Vegas odds, they're 7th. As far as Big 12 odds, it goes Iowa State, Utah, K-State, West Virginia, Texas Tech, Colorado, and then BYU is slightly ahead of Arizona. So Vegas is telling us BYU still has questions to answer for them to buy in. Do they have questions to answer for Max Brown to buy in as a legitimate Big 12 championship contender?
I think so. Yeah, the only one there is the issue right there is Texas Tech being ahead of them. I just think it's hard to unpack if, BYU's had these really good wins. The Kansas State win is obviously their best win. The SMU win, again, SMU's got great momentum here, but that team, man, I covered SMU the week after BYU had them, and that team feels totally different. I wonder if BYU has the, explosiveness and then high-level explosiveness on offense to win you games that way, win you games offensively, and then defensively, do they have the dudes to stick up all year long? And we'll see. I think BYU should very much be in contention for a conference title. I think it's very real that you should be talking that way. I think the fact that there's 7 speaks to how fun this at back end of October and November is going to be for the Big 12. I think 7 sounds like what? Like, how can it be 7? Well, I think it's because all these teams above them are very, very much neck and neck. But taking care of business tomorrow versus Arizona, not allowing an Arizona team that, again, we talked about, it can be very exciting. If you catch them on the right side of the bed, waking up in the morning, they can get after you. Taking care of business tomorrow, I think, will put a lot of those doubters, myself maybe being one of them, to sleep Sunday morning.
A lot of eyes down in Boulder, Folsom Field, where K-State's getting 3 in the hook. They're 3.5-point favorite on the road against Colorado. Let's start here. If Colorado beats K-State in Boulder, Folsom Field, what does the conversation sound like next week concerning Deion Sanders' buffs?
People are going to be bought in. I think they're going to open every single college football national show, it feels like. And one thing that goes underappreciated when your head coach is Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter is taking the college football world by storm, Shedeur is playing at a really, really high level. And for Colorado to beat Kansas State, I mean, Shedeur has to play at a high level every single week for Colorado to have a chance, which I don't think you necessarily say about all the top quarterbacks that in the country. And I don't know if it's because of his last name. I don't know if it's because of Travis Hunter, but I think we sleep on how good he has been playing and how good his numbers are. And it wouldn't surprise me if Colorado wins this game and Shedeur has a big-time night that then Shedeur's back in to the Heisman conversation. But rightfully so. If Colorado takes care of business against a really good Kansas State team, I think all the conversations around Colorado having a playoff chance and both their star players being in the national conversation for awards are appropriate because they've earned that. They would be 5-1 with some good wins. But again, like we talked about, a lot more left in the season with a Big 12 where the top is that tier 1 of the Big 12. Like we talked about, is 7 teams, or I might say 6. Take Tech out of there and put BYU in. And that's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun back end of the season.
All right, Max, before I set you loose, NBC will be up in Eugene at Autzen for maybe the biggest game to date outside of Bama, Georgia. And Ohio State's getting 3 points. The line really hasn't moved. And most people I've listened to as far as making picks and breaking it down, they're like, I'm not touching it because I'm not sure what's going to happen. I like to cheer for our old Pac-12 buddies. I like Dan Lanning, so I'll be rooting for the Ducks, respecting Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. The Max Brown prediction coming up, Ohio State, Oregon. Sounds like what?
Sounds like this is the Will Howard game. I mean, you go in the portal, you pluck Will Howard from Kansas State. There was a lot of schools after Will Howard, and from what I understand, obviously Ohio State had weapons, but they were the highest bidder, and they go get their quarterback. And you went and got Will Howard to win games like this. You said goodbye to Kyle McCord, or you didn't guarantee that he would be the starter going into this season. So Kyle McCord walked, and the reason that he walked is because, or the reason that you maybe showed him the door, so to speak, is because you didn't think that he had the chops to go win you a game like this. And I don't know. I still think the verdict's out on Will Howard. I think he's a great quarterback, great college quarterback. But when you go and face on the road the Ducks, top 5 team, Autzen Stadium, we all know that's going to be absolute rocking. And I know what I'm going to expect from Dillon Gabriel. I know what I can expect from Dillon Gabriel. I think he's going to get the ball in time. He's going to make enough big plays. I think the question for me is, does he throw just the 1 pick, or does it end up being 2 picks that decides the game? I feel confident in how Oregon's offensive line has settled in, which that to me was the biggest concern in the first few weeks of the season. They shuffled things around, and I think they're going to do enough to hold up against a lights-out Ohio State defense. But Will Howard, when it's 3rd and 6, got to have it, and it's a quarterback down, can he come through? If the answer to that's yes, and Ohio State finds themselves in 60, 70% 3rd down, then I think they win the game. If the answer is no, and Tosh Lupoy and his Oregon Duck defense dial things up, then I think Oregon gets it done.
All right, Max, appreciate the time, man. Understand you're going to be in Chapel Hill this weekend. I've only been to Chapel Hill for a basketball game. I've never been for a football game. You looking forward to it?
It'll be fun. Was just walking the stadium, and it was cool. I was telling my play-by-play guy, there are very few coaches that I meet nowadays that there is a starstruck element to it. And Mac Brown walking into the coaches meeting and asking him questions, knowing that, hey, I mean, I asked him a question. He's got one of the best running backs in the country, Omarion Hampton. And, you know, the perspective that he's able to give when he rolls out. Yeah, I mean, I had Ricky Williams and I had Cedric Benson and I had Jamal Charles and, yeah, Priest Holmes was late there in the 90s. Just the context that he's able to speak from is remarkable. He's a legend. And if I had to guess, he's probably 1, 2, maybe 3 seasons away from hanging him up. So it was cool meeting him.
Well, have a great call, man, and travel safe. I always appreciate the time, okay?
It was fun. Thanks, Spence.
All right, Max Brown, college football analyst, really rising star in this business. He's with the CW, spent a few years with the Pac-12. Get him on Twitter at MaxBrown4 is where you find him. I want to tell you about my friends at Advanced Window Products. Nate Orchard, mayor of Sac Lake City, as well as Jake Weber, 2 great dudes, great family business, great family period. They've been in our community forever. They're not going anywhere. So if you need windows now, you should call today. But if you anticipate needing windows in the next month or so, call today as well, because you can lock in their fall football special this week where you save $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. So beat the rush and order today from their factory to your front door in 8 weeks or less. They've got lifetime warranties. They're transferable to the next homeowner. It's the highest quality custom windows in the state. It's not even close. You can save on your energy bill. They've got financing available. So if you're not in a great budget spot now, you can buy now and you can pay later. So definitely check them out. Give them a call today at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, 1 hour down, about 2.5 hours to go today as we have a short show making way for Utah pregame football. Craig Bolerjack, Gordon Monson, Big Show, Big Hour comes your way. Coming up next right here on ESPN 700. right, it's very dramatic. It's a very dramatic intro, but it's a very big deal. It's the big show, a big hour here on The Drive. Usually do it on Thursdays, but we moved it to Fridays so everybody could be in studio. Me, that guy, Gordon Monson. Where's our guy Bowler? I thought we moved it to Friday for our guy Bowler to be with us.
Let me tell you something, because we usually do it on Thursday.
I know.
And so I had all kinds of stuff planned today.
Yeah.
And then I found out that Bowler was going to be available on Friday.
Right.
So I moved all that stuff like I was moving furniture
I
around.
actually wasn't going to do the show today. I'm like, wait, Craig's going to be in studio? I'm going to come in then.
And then at the last minute, I hear Bowler is like at a pool somewhere with his feet up.
That creepy cackle in the background is our absent friend. Craig, where do we find you on this Friday, sir?
I'm in San Antonio, the Alamo City.
Okay.
We flew in after last night's Dallas Mavericks game, and here I sit as the road has beckoned me once again.
All right. Well, fair enough, Craig. We appreciate the time. So here's how we're going to roll. For longtime listeners of The Big Show, way back in the day with Bowler and Monson, then I took over as Craig left. You remember when Gordon and I did the show for about 7.5 years. Prior to every Jazz season, Gordon would bestow horrendous nicknames on the Jazz players.
Horrendous, yes.
Oh.
And then attempt to talk Craig into using them on the broadcast. Craig,
Right.
I believe so far
I don't think that's ever happened.
I was going to say, I believe so far you've used literally none of them. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
I begged you.
I'm anxious to see.
I begged you.
I'm anxious to see what you got up your sleeve, Gordo. I really am.
Okay, so we're going to roll. We'll do a little Jazz here, and then after we let Craig loose so he can go tour the Alamo, see the basement of the Alamo. There's not a basement. We'll do some college football. So, Gordon, Jazz season right around the corner. The floor is yours. The 2024 version of the Gordon Monson Utah Jazz nicknames.
Okay, so there are a couple things. First of all, Bowler, I'm going to give you a nickname for each of these players, and then I want to hear you use it in a sentence, like you're calling it. Okay.
I like that. I like that.
All right. So the first one is Oscar Shibwe.
Yes.
Okay.
So, as you know, Bowler, he's from the Congo, the Republic of the Congo.
I don't like where this.
Yes.
So I'm thinking Congo.
Well, not very creative, but
Well,
I can see where you went there.
that's what I'm going for this time. In the past, it's been hilarious, you know.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
just-
well, that's up for debate.
This time I'm going for
So
utilitarianism.
are you going to call market and finish? Are we going to go that simplistic?
I got to do something different.
Well, I mean, that's the finisher, which kind of came with the package, but no, I'm sorry, Gordo. Let's move on to number two.
Congo?
He won't even use it in a sentence. He doesn't even.
Okay, Johnny Juzang.
All right. Yes, Johnny. Jesus.
Okay.
Two options. One is Double J, for obvious reasons.
Pretty lazy.
The second one is Crash because he suffered a concussion in an auto accident shortly after he arrived in Utah a year or two ago.
You're mocking him for getting in a car accident? We can't call him Crash because he's been in a car accident. What is wrong with you?
I thought it had a nice ring to
man,
it.
I could look, Gordo. I would maybe consider JJ.
Better than Crash.
How about Double J?
All right.
No?
Double J.
Blue
JJ.
Jay.
I mean, possible. I mean, that's maybe 1.5, maybe 2 out of 10 on the list.
Bowler, do you feel comfortable using it in a sentence?
Let's see. JJ for 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think that works, but
Okay.
Double J.
Micah Potter?
Doesn't have the
Micah
ring.
Potter.
Doesn't have the punch.
How about for Potter, welcome back?
I kind of like that one because it's a good reference. That's your best one
clever,
so
yeah.
far by far.
Yeah. Welcome back, Potter.
Yeah, not
Okay.
bad. Not bad.
I thought it worked a little
But
bit.
listeners under 50 won't understand what it means.
Well, who cares about them?
Yeah,
Well, fair
look,
enough.
that's Travolta. If you want to look back in history, that's where he made his mark before Grease and the rest of his movie career.
All right, we're making progress.
Okay.
Welcome back is not horrific, so
Okay.
that's a good step.
Or if you want to shorten it, you could say WB or something. Okay. Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
He has a nickname already, the Sheriff.
Yeah, he does.
But I don't. No. I'm saying either Lurch or, I don't know, how about Waffles?
Waffles?
Waffles Walker.
Because he likes to eat waffles? He does like a Waffle House. That's true.
Waffles, Walker, Kessler. I'll tell you what, I personally like Skywalker myself.
But he doesn't
But
jump.
he prefers Sheriff, yes. Yeah, he's a sheriff in town.
Bowler, will you just
Waffles.
humor me
You know
and
what,
use waffles in a sentence, please?
I tell you, Walker waffles Kessler inside and the two-hand dunk, and the Waffle Man is on. Well, let's pour
it
some
works.
maple
It's pretty
syrup on
funny.
This guy.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Waffle.
lie. That's not bad.
Waffles Walker. I mean,
it's ridiculous, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'll ask Walker tomorrow. Okay, shoot around.
No, please don't. Please
Ask him if he likes waffles. All right, John Collins.
Okay.
These are, I thought dictionary for Collins dictionary.
Okay, yeah, not bad.
And that's kind of hard for Bowler to get all that out.
Okay, yeah, it's a little convoluted.
Or bus. There's a bus corporation called the Collins Corporation.
John Bus Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bus?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not really hefty.
No, that one.
He's not hefty. All he does
He's
is
a,
jump.
he's a thin bus.
Yeah, a short
Yeah,
bus. All right,
bus.
all right, moving on.
All right. He's not particularly short. Jason Preston. How about J School? Because he was going to go to journalism school when he went to college, and then basketball sort of took him in a different direction.
How about not going to be on the team in 2 weeks? I don't think we really give a rip about that. I mean, respectfully.
But I thought,
He's
Jason J
triple-double
School.
in the G League. Triple-double.
Is he on a two-way?
He is, and he's a nice young
Yes.
player. So
Yeah.
Jason J School Preston.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that worked. All right, Kyle Filipowski.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
His nickname already is Flip.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe second because he was drafting the second pick in the second round.
You
Really?
put no
In a
thought
sentence?
in any.
Hey.
Yes, I did. I
No.
researched
Kyle
this.
second Filipowski. That's awful.
Oh no!
How about okay? Let me try again.
Okay.
How about Steele?
Kyle Steele Filipowski.
He was a steal in the draft.
That's better than second. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Steal in the draft.
Do we know that he's a steal? He hasn't played in a game yet.
Well, I mean, that's what everyone's guessing.
Well, sure. They're also saying they're going to make the playoffs. Come on.
Okay. Well, then how about this one? How about Brain?
Kyle Brain Filipowski.
Yeah, because Will Hardy said, "quote His brain excites me."
So you have three awful options, Bowler. You have Brain, second, or Steele. So
Brain Filipowski.
I'm going to stick.
Brain's
I'm
not
going to
bad.
stick with Flip.
Okay.
I'm going to stay with Flip.
We've
The
only
Brain?
had two
Oh.
nicknames that are good enough for him to use them in a sentence. We need to improve.
I
here.
certainly didn't want to
Welcome
use.
back, Potter.
I didn't want to use OW for an older woman.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Let's see. How about Drew Eubanks?
Okay.
How about Trout?
Why?
Trout.
Why?
Because he's from
Where's that
Trout.
come from?
He's from Troutdale, Oregon.
So it's another one where they grew up. Congo, Trout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trout.
Drew, Trout, Eubanks. Craig, what do you think?
Trout Eubanks.
Go fishing for something else there, pal.
I'm just striking out left and right.
You are. You're doing a good job, though.
Okay. How about Svi? Svi Mukhaluk?
Svi Makaluchuk.
How do you say it, Bowler?
Yeah, it's McCulloch. McCulloch.
Played at
McCulloch.
Kansas.
Yeah. Okay.
UK.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking.
From the Ukraine.
I'm thinking P, as in Svi P.
What? Like it rhymes with VP?
No, it's like Sweet Pea, only it's Svi.
That's so bad.
P.
Is this like? Is this
PEA.
like so? Oh, I thought you were talking about the cartoon character from Popeye, Sweet Pea. You said VP.
Svi P
VP?
instead of Sweet Pea.
Craig, would you use VP in a
I'd say-
sentence, please?
No, 3 plays have played on before I even got that out. So, yeah. And I have to resuscitate Thurl. So,
How
How many more do we have?
I got a few more. Okay. Patty Mills, how about just Cake?
Patty Cake Mills. That
Because
wa-
his nickname
Patty
is
Cake
Cakes,
Mills.
but it's not used a lot, but I thought just Cake.
Not bad. Caters to the family contingent in the audience. Patty Cake Mills. Not
Yeah,
bad.
all right.
Okay,
Okay,
all
Bryce Sinzaba. I'm thinking right. The Bryce is right.
Bryce is right. Also somewhat clever. Craig, we're getting better. We're getting better.
Yeah, that one has a little bit of hope to it. The Sensabaugh, sensational or sensible, Sensabaugh.
Not bad.
Last time I tried coleslaw, Sensabaugh, you guys didn't like that.
Well, it's because you were making fun of his weight.
All right. Keontae George. How about just Prince?
Prince George.
Because, that's
Prince George.
that's William's son over there across the pond, and he's the king in waiting.
Might be your best one.
So he's young, and he's going to grow into the king.
I actually like that one.
Keontae is young. Is he going to grow into the king?
Bowler, that's not bad. Let's give our guy a little credit.
No, that's I'll say that has potential. Prince George. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just call him Prince.
He could take the throne at some point. Young player. That's not bad.
And then if
he may mistaken that for we got a party like it's 1999. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't want him to do that.
Then you'd have to call him the player formerly known as Prince.
Nice, Gordon.
All right, Colin Sexton. Last year I tried Texton and Sexton.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
But I thought this year maybe just sexy.
I don't like when you say sexy like that. It makes me feel weird.
Well, doesn't that work? I mean, it's not like that's a dirty word.
You can leave the room.
Thank you, Bowler. Young Bull. I think Colin's got a good Young Bull nickname.
Yeah, Young Bull.
All right, Taylor Hendricks. I'm thinking Swifty.
You know what? It works. You're catering to the audience. And Taylor's 20. He probably is a Swiftie. I mean, that whole generation loves Taylor Swift.
And it has a nice feel with the second of his last name, Swifty Hendricks.
It's not bad.
Bowler,
can we get that in a sentence?
Yeah, Swifty Hendricks swivels inside for the block shot. I'm writing this and working on this at the same time.
Craig is ready to go eat some nachos on the boardwalk.
I want to hear this as you call it the game. I can't settle for the trite.
Craig came up with that name. Don't call it trite. He's on the phone right now. He can hear you.
Yes. Flame on.
Calling it trite to the guy who came up with it? Wow. Brutal.
All right. Let's see. Isaiah Collier.
Uh-huh.
How about Quick Draw?
Isaiah Quick Draw Collier. Why?
Because he's one, it sounds good, and second, he's quick. Quick on the draw.
Okay, but he doesn't shoot it very well.
Well, I didn't say he actually hit the other guy.
Oh, okay. But he can draw the gun out of the holster quickly. Craig, I'll see it to you. What do you think?
That one I don't think works either.
Man, I am just.
We've got like 5 minutes left.
Okay, I got one more.
Okay.
Cody Williams.
All right.
Okay, AI.
Okay.
You know why?
I don't.
Because Cody is an AI code assistant. That's a thing. It's called Cody.
Okay. I did not know that.
And
I believe
yes,
you, yeah.
it actually helps. It's an AI system that helps people write and do other things.
Okay, I'm hesitant to believe you because I once had to turn your phone on for you in the studio because you couldn't figure that out. Technology is not necessarily your strength.
Well, I didn't. It's not because I know this. I had looked it up.
I see. What do you think about
AI?
AI has some interesting connotations, and Cody doesn't have a nickname, right?
I'd rather go with Wild Bill.
For Cody?
Then he'd be Billy Williams.
All right. Okay, so I guess final word here. Craig, are you going to use any of these?
It's very likely, but maybe welcome back Potter when he gets in a game.
Okay.
It's kind of clever, Gordo. I'll give you some credit. But again, it's about our listener, and we're going to have to talk a lot about the old Welcome Back Cotter program if we're going to use it.
That's fair.
What about Swifty? Run
a campaign. Swifty, okay. I mean, I can see that a little bit.
Keontae as Prince is not bad. Keontae as Prince is not bad.
Yeah, but you don't like Trout.
Prince George?
Yeah.
No.
See,
I don't think Trout.
This is the thing. When Spence and I called a game during the summer league up at the Huntsman a number of years ago, I brought up the name, and he used it for the rest of the game automatically. I was impressed, and so I want you to impress me.
How was that received?
Well, we only did one quarter, and we were not invited back. So I guess that tells you all you need to know.
Did I skip over? Did I skip over Markkinen?
You did, and go ahead.
How about Laurie? Not sorry.
Pretty funny. Pretty corny.
Yeah.
I think the finisher's better.
Corny.
I'm not going to lie.
Not you don't like, oops, I missed the mark again?
No, that's negative. We need him to shoot and play well. He's a good player.
Missed the mark again?
Got to knock down 40% from three, Gordo. So, oops, missed the mark. I can just hear myself say that.
And look, Sweet Pea, there's nothing wrong with Sweet Pea.
Is one of your worst, bro. I feel like I am doing a horrible job at guiding this bus because we only have a few minutes left, and we should talk a little Jazz since Craig is the voice of the Jazz.
Let's do it. So, sorry, I apologize.
No, you're good. It was an excellent effort. I'm the one that gives you the peer pressure to do it. You're the good sport to at least try.
Was that good job, good effort? Did you just do
it? It was good job, good effort.
It's good.
So Bowler, let me ask you this because we only have a few minutes. So far, we've seen Lowry, Taylor, Walker, Collin, Keontae start. That's got to be the group, right, that starts the game?
Yes. You got the knee sprain from last night. Collier most likely jumps in tomorrow night, but that's the five that looks to be Will's choice at this moment. Now, here's the one thing I think to think about. You saw Cody Williams come off the bench first. I've seen Collins and Clarkson come off quickly as well. I know there's a lot of blending the youth with the veterans, trying to, quote, teach them the way. I'm not sure how long that will last. They're 3-0. New Zealand was a walk. 19-point recovery against Houston last night without Luka, but they did have Kyrie and Clay, 107-102. They seem to be and you tell me what you're seeing, because what I see is better pace. They're in much better shape. They're hustling back, playing some defense. There's been some miscues, and again, turnovers has been the biggest problem, but that's what's going to happen with a youthful team. But I think the effort looks better than what I saw last year. Is it muscles? Is it attitude? Is it more confidence? Is it all the above? But I think what we've seen is a mix of vets with youth, and these guys are trying to show them the way. Markkanen, of course, is the centerpiece. Clarkson, when the season starts, Spence, don't know how many minutes he'll get, but for right now, he and John Collins have played well. And I don't think anyone's really been cheated for minutes. Williams, Sensabaugh, Juzang didn't play last night. Drew Banks was off the floor with Filipowski. I have a feeling we'll see them a lot of minutes tomorrow night. But, the rest of the way, man, we're halfway through the preseason. No way that I think they'd be 3-0. But then again, it is, quote, preseason. The real season starts on the 23rd at home against Memphis. But there's some intriguing factors here. Who's improved? Keontae on a moment or two. Walker looks a little more engaged, isn't glancing over at Will Hardy every second to say, how am I doing? Markkanen seems to be more leadership focused, muscled up a little bit, playing hard inside. But you know what? He's the eye of every defense in the NBA right now. That he's going to have to really battle every night. He'll take a beating unless someone else allows him to find space because they're shooting the ball well. It's still the three-point shot in this league opens the floor. And one guy that I think who intrigues me at least when I've seen him is Filipowski. He could be a steal, Gordo, to your point, at 32. There's some potential upside there. And Johnny Juzang has hit 7 of his first 9 threes in 2 stints on the floor. So it's still preseason, don't get me wrong. I see some improvement with speed of the game, pace of the game, and I think a little more physical on defense, which is absolutely what had to happen. You can't get worse than 30th in the NBA, ranked last in defense.
If we were to hold you to a one-word answer, and the question is, do you believe the results you're seeing, it would be?
One word only?
Yeah.
Improvement.
I was looking for yes or no.
Okay. No, I see that, yes. I see improvement from what we saw at the end of last year. More maturity, a more physical team, and a better physically fit team that can maybe keep the pace in a very up and down the floor league.
I'll take that as a no.
But still, the three balls are going to have to be, obviously key and turnovers. But then you have to live with that, right? With youth, and there's plenty of it on this floor. Cody, Filipowski, and Sensabaugh, Johnny, all these guys, Taylor and Isaiah Collier, and even Keontae, because that's a position he's never played, and he's on the fly trying to learn it. It's a tough, Collier played it in college for a short time and in high school, but Keontae never really had this ability to learn a point guard position in the NBA, and they're still trying to figure it out. But I see at least more mature 20-year-olds than I did 18 and 19-year-olds last year, who kind of are not so wide-eyed that they kind of know they're a pro and they got a job to do. And let me just emphasize that, a job to do.
All right, Bowler, we'll set you loose so you can go down to La Fonda, Mexican restaurant, Main Street, San Antonio, get some nachos.
Yeah.
You can only walk around the river walk once or twice, then you're like, I want to go home. It's not a great city, but
Yeah.
you enjoy it,
Yeah.
Craig, and travel safe. Thanks for
I've
the
been
time.
down there a lot. Gordo, I'll take a boat ride for you. Okay.
There we
Yeah,
go.
do that,
There
will
we
you?
go. Craig Bowler-Jack, TV voice of the Utah Jazz, brought to you by Big O Tires. Get our Healthy Car Special for $59.95, which includes a conventional oil change, checks on alignments, brakes, batteries, and more. Want to keep our customers safe on the road and help them save money on tires and service? There's always something on sale at Big O Tires. Stop into any of our 50 locally owned and operated locations in Utah or schedule an appointment online. Big O Tires has over 50 locally owned and operated locations in Utah. Visit bigotires.com to find a location near you. All right, college football with Gordon coming up next. We'll talk Utes, we'll talk Cougars. We're about an hour away from Utah pregame. Brett McMurphy, the man who broke the news to Cam Rising, will be back. Will join me at 4, and then we'll hand it over to Porter at 4:30. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, we've shedded the dead weight. Bowler is no longer with us. He's not dead. He's just in San Antonio. So everybody calm down. Calling Jazz preseason. Appreciate Craig's time. Spence Checketts, Gordon Monson, live in studio. It's the Big Show, Big Hour, brought to you by Big O Tires. All right, Gordo, let's do some college football here. We got about 20 minutes or so. Brett McMurphy, Action Network, he's going to be my guest just after 4 o'clock. Drops a tweet during the show yesterday that Cam Rising will be back under center for the Utes. Line moves up to about 5.5, so Utah, pretty healthy favorite on the road. Home team usually gets about 3 points, so Vegas is saying Utah's about a 8.5 point better team than ASU. Mm-hmm. Any concern tonight for the upset, or you think Utah gets it done?
Well, okay, if you want to ask questions, one of the questions is what happened against Arizona, was that just the fact that Cam Rising wasn't a part of it, or were there other things going on? And I know there are other players who didn't play well other than Isaac Wilson, but was that just an anomaly, or was there something functional that wasn't going the way, something else happening inside? And I kind of doubt that. I think that Cam Rising, as I've said 1,000 times, Spence, that tide raises all boats. And I think if he's healthy and he's able to grip the football and throw the football the way he usually did, and then he's able to use his brain to get the ball to the right person at the right time for the right reason, Utah is going to be Utah again. That's not what I saw against Arizona, that's for sure. And the problems in the red zone, Spence, and the problems on fourth down, these are things that the Utes are typically good at. But I think Kyle said they're about 50% in the red zone, and their goal is 70%. And so that's something that needs to improve, and it will with Cam Rising, unless he's still dinged. Unless Kyle said that he would only play a player like Cam Rising if he's cleared by the medical staff. But he got into the whole thing, is an 80% Cam Rising better than 100% Isaac Wilson? And I kind of think he is, but how effective can he be? Can he be, I'll say it this way. You said something weeks ago about Cam Rising and coaches trying to change him and trying to get him to play more under control and more carefully. And you said, I believe, you can't change the stripes of the zebra. That's who he is. And I kind of believe that now. I think that if you put him out there and say, okay, be Dan Marino and dump the ball off every time, he won't be Cam Rising anymore.
Well, for all of the conversation about the points of emphasis that they claimed that they were making very clear to Cam, my whole thing was like, how long will it last? He threw 29 passes before he was hurt. Like, it lasted a game and a half. Didn't even last a full game. And ultimately, taking Cameron's aggressiveness away from him is taking part of what makes him special away from him. I mean, that's who he's always been. Here's
the question, Spence. Can you take part of it away?
I hope so.
So if there's pressure on him, yeah, he can move a little bit, but just get rid of the ball.
Yeah.
That would be easy, although I don't think the Utes want him just to slide and just get away from everything and not be him. You saw him even in the game against Baylor. You saw, was it Baylor? When he ran and picked up a first down. That was a nice run, but okay, then slide. Don't be afraid to help your team gain yardage, but just don't be careless about it. And then you can keep that aggressiveness, that aggression, chuck the ball downfield, don't just dink and dunk, and then he'll be Cam Rising. And if you feel pressure on you, then get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the play where he got hurt is a perfect example of like the most basic. He was running to his left full speed. He had the ball in his left hand. What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Now, it was a confluence of things. Let's not put a Gatorade table 5 yards up. Like, let's logistically set things up a little different. And the defensive end from Baylor.
Cheap shot.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he continued the contact after going out of bounds. But part of that is on Cam, okay? It was first down. You had good field position. You didn't need to make a play. It wasn't 4th and 3 in the fourth quarter. Get out of bounds, get down, don't run full speed, have the ball in your left hand and try to get an incompletion because you don't want to avoid a sack. Sometimes a sack's okay.
Yeah.
And what's better than a sack is actually getting down in minimal contact. I think they would badly love to see Cameron adopt some of this stuff But in the moment
Right.
where you have to make that decision, is it hardwired into your brain where you're going to do that when for 5 years in college, or 7 years in college, 3 years in high school, all of the tape of Cameron looks the same, no matter where he's been, high school, college, transfer here. He's played the same way for 10 years now, football. Can you change that in one instance? I don't know, but I think Utah would very much like it if they could.
If you feel pressure, get rid of the ball. And if you don't, then be Cam Rising.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that he can boil it down to that. And remember how good the Utes looked before he got hurt.
Sure.
I mean, they looked like a top 5 team.
Yeah, it was SUU, and I think Baylor sucks, but your point isn't.
And in the first half against
correct.
Baylor.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, he looked fantastic. The Utes looked fantastic. The offense looked fantastic. The defense was charged up. And that's what I'm talking about, the effect that this guy has, not just on the offense, but on the defense too. They know that the captain's back.
Let me ask you, I'm glad you brought this up, because Coach Witt makes a point and has made a point of saying this, because you remember when Cameron took over for Charlie Brewer, second half, San Diego State, and Utah didn't win that game, but they looked so much better with Cam. And to your point, it wasn't just a rising tide for one position, it was the entire group. And every time Kyle goes into depth about Cam, he says the same thing. It's not just better quarterback play. He ups the bottom line of all of us. He raises the entire group. You've covered this game for 40-plus years. What is it about those dudes, those quarterbacks specifically at that position, that seem to lift the entire group? Why is that?
Well, football is, you hear a lot of coaches say it's an emotional sport. And when you capture the emotion of your team, especially a team that's as gifted and talented as the Utes are, then now you've got something. And Cam Rising is one of those guys who does that. There are a lot of guys. I mean, Tom Brady did that. I'm not comparing Cam to Tom, but I'm saying those are players. Every once in a while you see a defensive player who can do that. And it affects everyone. How? I'm not Sigmund Freud over here. I don't understand it exactly. All I know is what I see, and I believe what I see. And Cam Rising, if he is whole tonight, you'll see it happen with the Utes.
Sure, and another big portion of this, like watching Utah, and I'm not cracking on Isaac. He's 18 years old. He enrolled in April. I don't think even he thought he'd be on the field this early. He does have 7 picks. No other top 25 team has a quarterback with more than 5, so that's obviously not a good look. But there were so many moments in the Arizona game where the D would make a stand, and then they would go to the sideline, take their helmet off, take a sip, and then you hear the announcer like, "Welcome back, the defense." And then you can see the D's like, "We don't want to be welcomed back. We just got here." I think one of the things that Cam will provide is extended drives and the opportunity for the defense to rest up, because they looked gassed against Arizona. It did not look like a Utah defense, and for me, part of that is they had to play a lot, because there were very few sustained drives on the offense.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it is more than just emotion.
Yeah.
It's more than the mental side. It's the physical side, too. And he will provide that. The defense knows that Utah's offense is going to move the ball as long as they have Cam Rising at the controls. That's no knock on Isaac Wilson for all the reasons you just described. But Cam Rising has it, and he can move that team. He's done it for years when he's not injured. He's been injured a lot because of the way he plays and all of that. But I think the guys have told him now, look, you can't lift this team when you're wearing your ball cap over on the sideline. Get out there. Be you, but get rid of the ball if you have to, and help our offense move down the field, pick up first downs, and score touchdowns in the red zone. Kyle doesn't want field goals down there. He wants touchdowns. And that's the kind of thing that affects everybody. When the Utes go for it on 4th down and they don't pick up what they need, everybody just kind of goes, these guys are human. They go, ugh,
For sure. So we had Nate Orchard in studio, and Nate was on a couple of the Pac-12 teams that didn't play that well. 2013, 5-7, 2-7. Now the 2014 team went 9-4, 5-4 in Pac-12 play, and they went to a bowl game. They were ranked in the top 25. But I asked Nate what it was like early on when he knew that he and his defensive teammates were just going to have to carry the load because the offense couldn't do rip. And the look on Nate's face, right? So it's a real thing that if you're playing on the defensive side of the football, if you know that you don't have to do – like Nate even said in the defensive room, they would talk about how they had to score the touchdowns.
Yeah.
We need a pick six. We need to scoop and score because we know our offense can't move the ball. That's unfair to ask of your defense. If you're playing on D and you know that if you just do your job, not the job of the defense and the offense,
Exactly.
then you're probably going to be more confident that you can get the win. So I think we'll see a more energized, renewed Utah defense tonight.
And remember, Nate Orchard was a big play guy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he did.
Mayor of Sac Lake City still has the record.
Yeah. So, this is what I expect to see out of the Utes. If he's healthy, if he's out there and he can't throw the ball and the ball is flying on him, or he's grounding it, that's what I want to see. If he can be who he is, then the Utes will be who they are.
One more Utah question, then we will talk a little BYU, as ultimately BYU has a big game as well. Any concern about an upset tonight? Now, Arizona State came into Salt Lake last year, and they got curb stomped. It was a bloodbath. It was like 55-3 or something. Year two, Kenny Dillingham, they've got a really good running back. The Scatterbo kid is second in the Big 12 in rushing yards. Utah was not great last week or 2 weeks ago in the trenches against Arizona. The line just moved. Utah's now favored by 6. So a lot of the money is going towards the Utes now that 7's under center. You think Ute fans should be concerned at all about an upset tonight?
I think what we already talked about affects that defense and their ability to stop the run. Look, I've talked to Morgan Scalley about this 1,000 times, and to Kyle Whittingham too. They've said it over and over again. What's job one? What's priority one for that defense, Spence? Stop the run.
Every time.
And they have that running back down there. Stop the freaking run. And then the Utes can be what they are. And I think if they play free and they play the way they're capable of playing, they will stop. I don't know if they'll stop it, but they'll slow it.
So, all right, first of all, you covered and got to know Urban Meyer a little bit.
I did.
Now, he enjoyed at times needling our brothers and sisters down south.
He did.
Urban Meyer returns to Provo as part of the Fox Big 12 kickoff group that's going to be down there. Will he be offered a cougar tail or have one thrown at his head?
Both.
Okay.
Here, Urban.
It's actually perfect response.
Well, Urban. It's so funny for me to watch Urban on these panels and stuff, and the guys are being silly and they're carrying on, and Urban's just over there desperately searching for a sense of humor somewhere inside him.
I don't know if it exists.
But he was rough on BYU.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to him. I think I've told you this story before, Spence, but we went to lunch one day, and we were in that Italian restaurant for 4 hours.
Did he forget his wallet, or was that Boylan?
No, that was Boylan.
Okay.
He did not forget his.
Nice to show up.
But he spilled it all to me. He told me his whole life story, how tough his dad was on him, and how difficult it was growing up at times. And he also talked about the Cougars. I think he respected the program down there.
Do you?
Sort of.
Didn't feel like he did.
No, he didn't. He didn't do that really publicly. But I think he thought that the program had accomplished some things through the years. But there was no way he was going to convey that to his team. He was telling his team, go knock the living out of those guys.
Yeah. So here's where I'm at with BYU. Tremendously impressed with the way they've started and happy for Kalani and A-Rod and those guys. But I still have questions. Between the 20s, the K-State game, they're outgained by about 130 yards. Now, the defense is for real. Year 200 Jay Hill. They're causing havoc. They're forcing turnovers. They already have more sacks this year than they did all of last year, because last year they could not get to the quarterback.
And some of that's coming from extra help.
For sure. Now, ultimately, I think a lot of people around here believe they're legit. Vegas does not. Vegas has BYU as the 7th team in order to win the Big 12 championship as of now, even though they're clean. So Iowa State is the favorite as of today. Then it goes Utah, K-State, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Colorado, and then BYU is 7th. Vegas still wants answers. Does Gordon Monson have questions they still need to answer?
I do have questions, but I think that's a little disrespectful. What BYU's schedule thus far has been one of the hardest around.
And will continue to be.
Beating SMU on the road, doing what they did against Kansas State. And I know the skeptics think that was just a weird game that didn't go Kansas State.
What about the skeptics?
Way.
Remember that? Years ago when you were trying to say the skeptics, and you said, well, the septics would say, and then Austin played the toilet flushing.
Yeah, well,
anyway,
the septics, that's a different group. That's a dirty group.
Yes, it is.
But so I still need to see some stuff from BYU before I'm going to. But they have performed way above what we thought, and they've beaten a couple of ranked teams.
For sure.
And so At some point, you got to start believing.
Well, I think they're good. I don't think they're going undefeated.
Will they be able to run the ball against Arizona? LJ is supposed to be back for that game. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, "Well, the run game is suspect." Well, they've been beat up.
They're
badly.
down to their four-stringer
right?
Back, yeah.
And so now we'll see. But I would expect BYU at home to win that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any fun Gordon Monson plans for the weekend? I mean, you kind of have copious amounts of free time. You're going to do whatever you want to do this weekend.
Pretty much, but I may be watching some football. I mean,
live or at your house?
Maybe both. I mean, I'm not going to fly down to Tempe. You know.
Well, you need a helicopter to get to Provo, so you're flying either way.
I may go to Provo. I don't make a habit of that.
Godspeed.
But I might go down there for that game. Look, at this point, if the Utes are what we think they are, and I think they are, especially with Cam Rising back, and if BYU is what they've shown so far, then this is going to be a heck of a year for college football fans in this state.
I think BYU enters the Utah game undefeated, and I think Utah enters the BYU game with one loss. And I think they both might be in the top 10 if that happens.
And then Utah will beat BYU.
I agree with that as of now, but we'll see if it changes.
If Cam is healthy.
Indeed. All right, my friend. Always a pleasure, okay?
All right, thanks.
All right, the great Gordon Monson from the Salt Lake Tribune, my radio partner for 7 years at our old station. We do the big show, Big Hour, every week right here on The Drive. All right, let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Pros. I've had every single game at my disposal through 6 weeks of college football and 5 weeks of pro football. You guys can do the same. Save money, get new equipment, and get installation. It's a one-stop shop. Give them a call at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Spence, thank you so much. So excited for this weekend with all of these games. And, guys, here's the thing is I've already loaded up. They got the DVR all set to record almost every game in the Big 12, and no problem. The Hopper can handle that, plus basketball and hockey. I can put that all into one system and auto-record my favorite team's games. Call us up and take the upgrade. Get the best thing ever happened to TV, and that is the DVR. And, guys, the Hopper has the fastest, easiest to use, most accessible DVR out there where you can have access no matter where you are, plus be able to do that pause, instant replay, rewind, skip forward. As Spence and I we have a little system where we can burn through basketball games, free throws. You just hit that instant skip forward and boom, right back to the action. Call us up. Get the best system out there. We'll throw in dinner at JCW's. Okay, guys, this is the thing. I'm going to lose this extra promotion. I get the multi-sports pack I can hook you up with free for a year. That includes the NFL Red Zone. We are almost going to lose this. Call now. I'll get you that, plus dinner at JCW's, and get you the best price guaranteed. 424-DISH, 801-424-3474.
I want to tell you about my friends at Clearwater Distilling. It's the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays. Great spirits, tasting room, the nicest crew around. They have their limited release Wednesday whiskey batch number 2 out right now. It's a mix of their bourbon and rye whiskeys. They have a Scandalous, Renee, or their vodka now available in most state liquor stores. Football season is kicked off, and Clearwater is also the official spirits provider for our VIP ESPN tailgate we have at every home game. Do yourself a favor, check out the tailgate or schedule a tour and tasting in their Victorian tasting room. Makes a great date night, fun activity anytime. They have authentic vintage prohibition, prescriptions, and decor. Try their Scandalous. It's a no-sugar, no additives, great tasting, grown-up version of cinnamon whiskey. They have ultra-premium spirits, many with a unique twist. Try their Renee, their Armagnac, their Josephine, or their Lorenz. You can buy their spirits in state liquor stores online or take a trip to their beautiful distillery, grab some booze, some local cigars, and immerse yourself in the Clearwater distilling culture. More information can be found at clearwaterdistilling.com. They're located at 564 West, 700 South in Pleasant Grove. All right, the man who broke the news that Cam Rising will be under center tonight for the University of Utah, Brett McMurphy, stops by coming up next, and then we will say goodnight. And I'll turn it over to Porter Larson and Jordan Wynn for Utah pregame coverage. Kickoff is at 8:30, and you can hear all the action right here on ESPN 700. About 30 minutes away from our Utah football pregame coverage, Porter Larson, former Ute quarterback Jordan Wynn will take over starting at 4:30 or so, and then they'll send it down to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Sean O'Connell. Sean's in for Sly tonight as Utah takes on Arizona State. So stay tuned for that here on your home of the Utes. But joining us now, the man who dropped some very welcome news around these parts yesterday, Brett McMurphy, who reported that Cam Rising will start tonight at Arizona State. Brett, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
If you guys would give me $5 for every time you played that song, would I be a millionaire?
Yes, you would, and so would I. We all would be, Brett. But you do understand we've been waiting for this kid to play for a few weeks now, so everyone's very excited.
Yeah, well, I was told that he was actually really close the last game, but ultimately, I don't think don't know specifically, but I think maybe not enough. You got enough practice work in, possibly. I know, after the Baylor injury, after the injury against Baylor, I was told, it was the ring finger on the throwing hand. And others have reported that also. I was told there were some stitches involved. I do not know how many. And then, for the next couple of weeks, I was told that there was some swelling there that didn't go down. And that was limiting his ability to obviously grasp the football. You got to have a grip if you're going to throw it. And now I was told, he's good to go for, I guess in a few hours, which of course, when I tweeted that, there was the automatic reaction like, yeah, we've heard this again. we're not going to believe it till we see it. But, that's what I was told. And it's huge for Utah because, basically that loss to Arizona, you can lose again and make the college football playoff, but that means you've got to win the Big 12 championship. If you win out and then lose that Big 12 title game and you're 11-2, you've got a legit shot for an at-large bid. But there's no way a Big 12 team with 3 losses that does not win the Big 12 is going to get in. So, Utah's kind of in a, kind of the cliche back against the wall and, Rising being back, hopefully he can stay healthy the rest of the way. I think this schedule sets up nicely. You get in November, we get a harder than expected at Colorado game. Obviously, BYU is going to be BYU. And then Iowa State. So I think Utah's in good position, but that Arizona game kind of put them in a tough spot.
So, Brett, I don't know how else to ask this than just to ask it. Out of, the concern that folks have around the market, I'm not questioning your reporting. We're both in the same business, and I would never do that to you. But there is a healthy amount of skepticism that exists around here. We will see it when we believe it. When the first team runs out tonight on offense, if Cam's under center, then most folks will say, okay, yes, this is correct. So how confident are you that when Utah takes the field tonight, Cam Rising will be under center?
So I'm as confident as when I reported Gonzaga was going to Pac-12, and nobody believed me either. So I did not get this information from the same source, but the source that told me he wasn't going to play against Utah State, the same source that told me he wasn't playing against Oklahoma State, same source told me that it was doubtful against Arizona. I did not report the Arizona news because for various reasons. And the same person told me he's starting against Arizona State. That's all I can go by, until he walks out on the field, and we'll all know. But again, I don't take these things lightly. I have never reported all year that he was going to play or he was not going to play unless I knew that. And I haven't reported he was going to play anytime until the Arizona State game. I didn't report he was playing at Utah State, Oklahoma State, Arizona. I know, some of the Utah beat guys are in the press box and they see him taking first-team reps and like, Cam Rising's playing, and I knew he wasn't, but I'm not gonna call out other people and say you're wrong. So yeah, how confident am I? I'm confident enough that I reported it. I don't take that lightly. I can report 100 things correct. I get one wrong. Nobody's going to remember the 100 things I got right. They're going to remember one thing that's wrong. So, unless something happened from think I tweeted it around 3 or 4 Eastern yesterday. Unless something has happened between 3 and 4 yesterday and tonight's kickoff that I'm not aware of, then I'm 100% sure that he will start.
And obviously that's what we all hope, and that's what we all want around here. I'll follow up with this. Did your source indicate just simply how healthy Cameron is? Can we expect to see a 100% Cam Rising? Are they going to roll with a bit of a compromise Cam Rising over a healthy freshman as his backup? Any intel on just how right Cam is tonight?
Right enough that he's back in the starting lineup. I did not get any specifics on, if he struggles, if things don't go right, if he's not 100%, how quickly do they make the change? I don't have that information, so I'm not going to speculate and pretend like I do, because I don't. So I'm just being honest with you. I don't have an answer to that question.
I don't suppose you have any information on the health of Karene Reed and Connor O'Toole, right? Two very important players on the defense.
For me, as a national guy, quarterbacks are so much more important.
Sure,
yeah. So no, I didn't. I guess I could have checked on that, but no, I'm just, there's so many different schools I try to keep an eye on, and obviously quarterbacks, and obviously Rising's, situation is obviously, pretty big. I reported earlier today, Hudson Card of Purdue, he's out. So I usually focus more on the quarterback or skill position, unless it's, obviously Travis Hunter as a defensive player with somebody that would warrant that type of attention. So, yeah, sorry, no help there.
No, all good, all good. So you referenced this a little bit earlier. The the backup quarterback situation a year ago for Utah was rough. It was Nate Johnson, it was Bryson Barnes, then it was both of them at times. Isaac Wilson, a young 18-year-old freshman, was able to get them a win in Stillwater, which right now doesn't look like a good win. A couple weeks ago, Arizona rolls into town, and they smacked Utah pretty good. But with what you've seen so far, Vegas has Utah second right now in the odds to Iowa State. I would imagine you would tell the folks around here you still believe Utes are among the favorites to win this conference and go to the CFP, even with all the injury stuff?
Yeah, I think Cam's a big part of that. And, before the season, I picked Utah to win the Big 12, go to the college football playoff. After the loss to Arizona, I've got Iowa State now. My projections, I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State actually loses to West Virginia. So you guys may or may not know this. I'm a, graduate of Oklahoma State, so I'm a Big 12 guy. I've been saying this since June. The Big 12, I'm afraid, is not going to get a second team in the college football playoff. I just think everybody's going to get beat up on each other. But yeah, certainly I think Utah's in as good a spot as anybody. I'll be fascinated to see what Colorado does against Kansas State. Colorado's a lot better than I expected. And certainly, maybe people overrated UCF, but they handled UCF very easily. Are they a legit contender? Iowa State's, a contender. I mean, heck, we're talking about all these teams. Texas Tech's leading the league at 3-0. Nobody's talking about them. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's very simple. You can't lose. I think you can lose 2 conference games, and then you're going to be in a tiebreaker to get into the conference championship game. And I don't see Utah losing more than 2 more conference games. But like I said earlier, if you get to that conference title game at 10-2, and you lose that game in your 3 losses and you're a large team, there is no way they're going to take a big – and nothing against Utah. It could be any Big 12 team you want. There's no way the selection committee is taking a 3-loss Big 12 team over a 3-loss Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and go through the laundry list of Big 10 and SEC teams. So that's why it's imperative, if you want to have a little, margin for error, if you will, is to get to that championship game with 1 loss. If the Big 12 has 2 11-1 teams in that game, then I think the runner-up's got a very good, very, very good chance of getting in. But unfortunately, I would be stunned, even though we're talking about Texas Tech being undefeated, I would be stunned if both teams in that championship game only have 1 loss.
So as you know, Brett is one of the preeminent news breakers in our business, and Brett McMurphy from the Action Network is our guest. He is the man who broke the news yesterday that Cam Rising will be back under center tonight. He has reaffirmed his report here on the program today. As a man who breaks news, you're aware that trying to get injury news from Utah football is like trying to parachute into the Kremlin. It's impossible. And Kyle Whittingham maintains that by withholding injury information from the public, he gets a competitive advantage with his football team. Do you agree with that?
I understand that line of thinking, but I don't agree with it. I think, I've talked to different coaches about this, not specifically Kyle, but I love Kyle. He's one of my favorite coaches. I understand that mentality, but I don't. You may be able to give me some examples, but off the top of my head, like what team, when you go to your backup, changes what they do offensively? You're still running the same offense. Yes, it's a different guy. He's got different strengths. It's not like, though, you're going from the spread to the wishbone. It's not like you're going from, the veer to the RPO. You're still going to do what you're going to do. I understand that mentality. All I know is, I was at ESPN for 6 years, know a lot of folks there, and I've talked to, several other of the college analysts, several of the NFL analysts, and they tell me the difference in going into an NFL facility a couple days before a game and a college facility a couple days before a game is 180 degrees different. He said you go into an NFL, facility, and you say, hey, what's the status of Tom Brady? What's the status of Bo Nix, whatever? And they like, okay, he didn't practice. He's this. He's 50%. He's got a bad hammy. He's got this. You want to see? Here's his X-rays. You want to see? Like they don't hold anything back. They are upfront and all that. And obviously, you get both sides do that. I know what Kyle's saying because it's not required by both teams to do that. Heck, I don't remember. I did a story a couple of years ago, basically making fun of all the schools that don't put out depth charts. I believe Utah does, but I can't remember.
They do.
But anyway, it's so it's like, there are probably like 20 schools in the country that don't put out a depth chart because coaches are so paranoid. And like I talked to different, ESPN analysts, Tom Luganbill and different guys, and he's like, look, all these coaches have recruited against everybody. Their people are in the portal. They know the personnel. Why don't you put on your freaking a piece of paper who the starters and backups are? It's for some reason college coaches are so paranoid about that. And, you had, everybody in the Big Ten supposed to do it. This is obviously when Harbaugh was coaching. So Harbaugh wouldn't do it. So then other coaches wouldn't do it. I think it was New Mexico State. The first week they played somebody. They had their depth chart. The next week they played Minnesota. It was Minnesota's opener, New Mexico State's second game. Minnesota didn't put out a depth chart. So New Mexico State did not give out a depth chart in week 2, although they did in week 1. So that's just kind of the asinine things that these coaches are thinking. I understand what Kyle's saying. I guess, the SEC now has a standardized availability report. The Big Ten does too. Once we get everybody doing that, then maybe some of these college coaches will be more upfront with this. I mean, they'll have to be or they'll get fined. But I guess to answer your question, I don't think it's an advantage at all. I think it's more mentally. I think maybe it's a game. And you know what? I just know this is me. I'm in Florida, okay? This is me from a distance, a million miles away. I've heard a lot of people that are actually down on Utah, but that's the best way I can describe it. Not necessarily the players or anything like that, but just the way that they, and I guess it's Kyle's the guy at the top, the way that they've handled the injuries. Last year, every week, well, we don't know about Cam. He may they never just flat out said that the guy's done for the year. Like you guys experienced it. You were at ground zero. How much easier your life would have been, and just the constant, it's Friday. Is Cam in or out? And there was never any, official statement that look, this guy's not going to play, or he's not going. He's out until we tell you he's not. He's coming back. And that I think that a lot of people, for what it's worth, I don't know, got turned off by that, but I understand his thinking. I don't agree with it, but I understand why he's doing it. And he's not the only guy that does it.
Right, and that's actually where I want to follow up, because you are correct that there is a big portion of this community, a big portion of the fan base, a big portion of donors and boosters and season ticket holders that pay money to the program to support NIL endeavors. And the reports are Cam is making in the neighborhood of $2 million, and they have been turned off at the way this thing has been handled. Let me ask you, what's the right way to handle a situation like this?
Well, I don't necessarily think there's a wrong or right way. I guess part of it, which leads into this distrust and kind of frustration, is when OU did this when Dylan Gabriel was there. OU Texas, they ran him out, had him take snaps with the first team in pregame warmups. Everybody's going crazy. Dylan Gabriel's starting. They go in the locker room. They come out. He's wearing shorts. So it's playing games like that. You know, did Texas change their game plan because Gabriel was in pregame warmups? No, they didn't. But it's like stuff like that. So the right or wrong way, that's impossible. I noticed that again, and I haven't heard all of Kyle's press conference. This I'm not going to pretend I have, but I heard him mention something like week 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. He was asked about Cam, and he basically said, if it's a season-ending injury, we'll tell you. But other than that, we're not going to talk about injuries. Well, that's great. But did he not have that policy last year? That would be the question I have. But I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong. If it's a season-ending injury, then, yeah, you need to come out and do it. The stuff about the depth charts I talked about, I talked to Mac Brown about that. I talked to Jed Fish. She was at Arizona then. They're like, look, these guys should be recognized as having won the starting job. You should list them in the depth chart. You shouldn't play games. Don Brown of UMass, first game of the year last year, had 5 players listed. He had Orr 4 times. Joe Smith. He had 5 guys. Come on. You got 5 guys listed as your starting quarterback. So, you know, it's college football until we get a uniformed availability report. I guess we're going to have to put up with it. But, you know, I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong way, but I think when you know a guy's not starting and you run him out there first team, taking first team snaps like Cam did. I don't remember if it was Oklahoma State or another game, and he's not going to start. I think that's kind of look. Everybody wants a competitive edge. I just think that's needless. You really don't need to do that.
All right, before I set you loose, and you just alluded to other examples, but I'll follow up with this because we kind of get into our own echo chamber around here, and Coach Witt takes a lot of criticism, and people will say things like he's the only one that does this, and he's very much not.
No.
So just how commonplace, Brett, is this approach across the landscape of college football?
Well, I gave you Dylan Gabriel went out pregame warmups. He was questionable. First team pregame warmups. They went in the tunnel. OU Texas, they came back out. He's wearing shorts. He didn't play. C.J. Jefferson, when he was at Arkansas, same thing. Pre-game warm-ups, first team, taking all the snaps, go to the sideline, opening kickoff, takes off his helmet, doesn't play the entire game. That's 2 off the top of my head. If you would have gave me time before the call, I'm sure I could have thought of a dozen of those. So it happens a lot. It happens very frequently. The thing I think that's frustrating for me, and I'm sure with fans, is, and believe me, if it sounds this way, I don't mean it to sound this way. I'm not railing on Kyle. I want to make that very clear. I know some coaches have done this, and I don't know if he has or not, where they come out and say, well, we can't talk about injuries because of the HIPAA laws. Yet the same coach the next week will come out and say, oh, well, you know, Johnny Smith broke his leg. He's out for the year. Well, what happened to your HIPAA rules there? I mean, it's like when they want to use that, they use it. When they don't, they don't. Again, it just boils back to college coaches just have a different mindset regarding injuries that they do in the NFL. I mean, heck, there's some coaches that, when a kid's hurt, they'll be up front and say, look, this kid's out. He's not going to play. We're hopeful to get him back. So it's just, when coaches are inconsistent, that's probably the most frustrating for me, and I'm sure frustrating for fans, is they'll talk about injuries one week about a certain player, and then another week they clam up and say, well, that's HIPAA, we can't talk about it, or, we don't discuss injuries unless it's a season-ending injury.
Well, Brett, you made a lot of people happy around here. As you reported, that Cam Rising will be under center tonight. So I appreciate your time. Have an excellent weekend. Love to have you on again, okay?
Yeah, so I guess we can expect Wilson to take first-team snaps in the pregame, and then Cam comes running in. Who knows?
Yeah,
But,
you never know.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'll be watching.
Thank you, sir. There he is, Brett McMurphy, college football insider, now with the Action Network, spent a number of years with ESPN. Brett reported yesterday that Cam Rising will be under center tonight for the University of Utah, and he reaffirmed that report during this interview about 10 minutes into it. If you missed it, you can head over to the website in a little bit and check it out, because I, like a lot of you, will believe it when I see it, and hopefully we do see that tonight. All right, coming up next, it's Utah pregame coverage. Porter Larson, Jordan Wynn, they'll take care of you. Before I say goodnight, I want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks, best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It is legal in Utah. That's important to know. Some of these apps are not. This app is. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that are really fun that can lead to big payouts like a Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. It's the best way to win real money this football season. So they're offering you free money. You might as well go get it, then check out the app and see if you like it. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, we'll wrap it up. Coming up next right here on ESPN 700.